to introduce Senator Brian Stack.
It's a pleasure being here. First, I would just like to introduce myself. Bill mentioned that I'm a state senator. I've been state senator since 2008. Prior to that, I served 4 years in the Assembly. I served as a county freeholder many years ago. Sometimes it seems like many, many years ago as a county freeholder. I've been mayor of Union City. I was just re-elected on Tuesday. I've been mayor of Union City for 18 years. It's a pleasure being here. I'm very active in the community, as everyone knows. I'm very active in Jersey City, very active in my district. I'm not a traditional politician that you basically hear from, especially on a countywide level, just before an election. I believe in being active throughout the whole year. I believe in giving out my cell phone number, providing services the best I possibly can on a state level, making sure that state government is responsive to your needs. As everyone probably does know, I'm a big supporter of Liberty State Park, keeping it as open space. I've been a big proponent in the Senate and the Assembly to bring in as much open space money into Hudson County as possible. Affordable housing, rent control are very, very important issues to me. In fact, I met with the Jersey City group yesterday that is pushing very hard on the rent control to really get the message out there to all the tenants in Jersey City. And that's something I have a strong passion for. Helping, housing is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And really, I think that's been forgotten sometimes by some of the larger landlords. Making sure tenants have their rights protected, and making sure overall that government in general is responsible. I've tried very hard in my role as mayor of Union City to do that. I've tried very hard as a state senator to bring services back to the district, to bring as much money back to the district as possible. I know many of you are reading about this, the struggle with the state budget that's taking place right now, about Jersey City school funding. That's something I'm going to fight very hard to make sure Jersey City retains the money that they receive, if not to increase that money. What a lot of people don't understand on a statewide level, and I was talking about this yesterday, in fact, in a group meeting we had in Jersey City in another section of the city, is that many of the legislators that you have now in Trenton are not urban, they don't represent urban, they don't come from an urban area. I guess that would be the best way to say it. They're suburban Democrats. So their philosophy is a little bit different than our philosophy here. They look at Jersey City as the waterfront, as Ward E. And I try to explain to them that's one section of the city. And while that's a great part of the city, as Jersey City is a great city, there's a big city in Jersey City that poverty and the need is still there, the same as it is in Union City. Union City mirrors Jersey City Heights, Journal Square, all the way down into Ward A. So I'm trying very hard, along with Senator Cunningham, to retain that funding for Jersey City, if not to increase it. I don't want to speak too long. I'd rather open up for any questions anyone may have, or anything specifically you would like me to speak about.
Yeah, if I could exercise the moderator's
Please,
prerogative.
I'm sorry, sure.
First couple of questions, then I'll open it up.
Okay. Brian Stack, my name is Yvonne Walser, and you talked about affordable housing. My greatest concern is this. Who looks after the homeowner? In Jersey City, there was 34 pages of people in tax lien. See, we're not protected by rent control. We get our homes taken from us right away. So I want to know about that. And the second issue I wanted to know is, why can't I have on my tax bill what I subsidize tax abatements? There is a line on the tax bill that tells me what the state gives me in subsidies, so my tax bill is not as high as it could be. There should be a line on my tax bill that tells me what I am subsidizing, whether it's affordable housing or luxury housing. That's the reason why my taxes is 1/3 higher than it should be, because I'm subsidizing other people's taxes. And the other thing I want to talk about is the friendly budget. I go to the council meetings every year, and when I started to go to council meetings in the 70s, the budget was $90 million. Well, this budget is like $600 million in a matter of 40 years. There's no friendly budget, I was told this year by the state. Could you explain why there is no friendly budget, which basically shows us how much money tax abated properties are being subsidized? Why isn't that being issued this year?
I'm not exactly sure, Yvonne, why that's not being done. I wasn't aware of that. I will find out on Monday. I'll reach out for the governor's office and find out. I believe that they were doing a friendly budget, as you called it.
That's what it's called, yes.
That they do put out, and they put it online. I'll find out on Monday why that's not being done. As for abatements, I'm not a real big proponent of abatements. I don't speak for Jersey City, obviously, because I don't have a vote on the council and I'm not the mayor of Jersey City. But in Union City, I haven't given out abatements.
But the state law was changed in 1990, which allowed Jersey City to abuse abatements. If the state law was not changed in 1990, they would not have had the legal authority to do what they're doing. So I think it should go back to where it was in the past. It was only for certain properties, and now it's for everything all of a sudden. You know, Newport went up without tax abatements in the beginning, the first 4 buildings. Society Hill, no tax abatements. There's a bunch of them. But once the state changed the law in 1990, all of a sudden, boom, now you need tax abatements.
I would be willing to go back and look with Raj and myself to look at those laws to see if we can change some of them. I agree with you. Everything should not be abated.
Yeah, okay.
Should not be.
All right, well, Senator, let me ask you about a couple of things
Sure.
that are Governor Murphy's priorities, and I'd like to know whether you support them or oppose them. For one thing, I know he has proposed a millionaire's tax to help fund, to help fund some of his new initiatives, and Senate President Steve Sweeney, who is not, unfortunately, on the best of terms with the governor, is not in favor of this. He apparently proposed a corporate tax, noting that corporations under the federal tax law that was passed just last December got a huge break. And so I was wondering, what's your feeling on this? And also another of the governor's big initiatives is marijuana legalization. And I'd like to know what you feel about those two issues.
Sure, Bill, sure. On the millionaire's tax, I support the millionaire's tax fully. I've supported it in the past, and I'll support it in the future. I think that's something that's very beneficial to the state budget, very beneficial to Hudson County. As for marijuana legalization, I'm not there yet. I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not there on marijuana legalization. I think there's a lot of quirks that need to be worked out in the legislation. We have problems with people driving under the influence of alcohol right now. There's no device to be testing people right now to test them if they're driving under the influence of marijuana. I don't know what kind of a message we're sending to our youth about legalizing marijuana, and I'm just not there yet. And we shouldn't be doing it just to fill a hole in the state budget. What would be next? What do we legalize next after that? So that's something, could I be there in the future? Possibly, I could be there to support it. But I'd need to see much more information. There was one hearing in Trenton that I attended, and 200 people were invited in favor, and I think one person was invited against it. I want to hear from the state PBA, I'd like to hear from the state police, from the Chiefs Association in New Jersey. I'd like to hear from medical doctors on it. Bring some specialists in, lung specialists, experts in, to really hear more on this. Medical marijuana, I support 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. I've supported it in the past, and I think when somebody's at end of life, or when somebody's in chronic pain, we should be giving them whatever they need with medicine. So, but as for legalization of marijuana across the board, I'm not there yet. I could be. I'd just like to see what else is out there, and I'd like to hear a little bit more on both sides of that issue, not just one side.
Well, I myself am torn on this issue, but what about decriminalization?
Decriminalization is something I could support.
Yeah.
Yes.
And could you comment?
I see, and Bill, thank you. Can I just follow up 1
Sure.
second? I see on decriminalization what Bill mentioned, it's actually a very good question. I help a lot of people get expungements. And for somebody to have their record marked for the rest of their life for smoking marijuana, it is sad. Where people are denied jobs, people are denied getting assistance at colleges, that's something I would support. Yes, I would.
And let me ask one more question,
Sure.
and then I'll open it up to the
Sure.
floor. What about the budget? As I understand it, the legislature and the governor have to agree on a budget by June 30th. It's unlike the federal government, which they go months and months on continuing resolutions. We're now May 12th, so we've got a little more than 45 days
Yes.
left to go. Do you think the state will have a budget by June 30th, and what are the consequences if we don't?
Sure. I serve as vice chair of the budget committee in the Senate, so I'm confident that we'll have a budget. We've had the hearings, we've been hearing, each of the state departments gets a separate hearing. So let's just say, to give you an example, the Department of Education gets a separate hearing. We've done them already. We're now going in probably to like the last 5 hearings for state, and then after that, there'll be a few more public hearings that will be held. I'm confident that we'll have a budget. I know that there's growing pains right now between Senate President Sweeney and the governor. I'll call it a growing pain, and getting to know each other a little bit. So I think at the end of the day, things will work out and everybody will be on the same page, and I'm very hopeful for that.
Okay, questions?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm Angel Estrada. I concern about my property. I live in 96 Mercer Street. And I came there 1953. I bought my house 1965. So it's 54 years in my own house. I have just my family living in my house. And right now, I'm struggling paying the tax. I received a letter for double my price on the taxes. How come I had to sell my house, which is my sweat for all my life, to pay double taxes, which I can't pay double taxes? I pay right now almost $14,000.
Sure. I just recently introduced legislation. It hasn't had a hearing yet. It was really introduced, Mr. Schroeder, I would say about 3 weeks ago, that would basically roll in the revow over a 5-year period. It wouldn't be in one shot that you would receive an increase. I'm also looking at legislation that would address exactly what you're talking about, that instead of waiting 20 or 30 or 40 years, that possibly maybe we could do something what they would call like a rolling revow, that we're looking at possibly, and maybe other states might be doing, where it's done every 3 years, so the impact isn't as severe as it is here in Jersey City. The story that you just told me, I've heard quite a bit from residents in Jersey City that have contacted me, I've spoken to. If you could call me on Monday, or one of my staff members, Justin, in the back, could take your phone number. I'll get you a copy of the legislation. I'm going to work with Raj to see if Raj has agreed to introduce it in the assembly, and we could move this along, because it's only fair for everyone that it should be rolled in. It shouldn't be an immediate impact. It's more of a question. I'm not deflecting the question, believe me, I'm not. I'm not deflecting the question to the council or to anybody else, but I think that would be more of a municipal government question. My position myself as a local mayor of the town next door, I don't believe in long-term abatements. I think, there's a time when maybe you need to bring them in, if there's a job attached to it, where people from Jersey City are going to be receiving those jobs. Maybe then it was needed. I'm not so sure now that we have to give out those. And the other concern I have, and I said this yesterday to the tenants group that I met from Jersey City, which were very hardworking people, spoke to me. The issue that I have is that a lot of the new development that's happening, not only in Jersey City, anywhere, whether it be in Bayonne, all the way up to North Bergen, whether it be, even when I get a small building built, I don't really have what you have being built because I don't have a waterfront. But the problem that you have is a lot of this new stuff is artificially raising the taxes and the rents on small homeowners, on tenants that are going to be forced out overall too. Because if you live across the street from that new building that got built in General Square, and you own a 6-family building, or you own a house, those houses are being sold at artificially high numbers, and it's increasing everything around it. So we don't want to push out the people that have been living here for a long time. Well, on the other hand, I understand Jersey City is looking for, tax ratables, and I understand that over a period of time. But on the abatement issue, I think that would be a better question asked to the municipal council than it would from me, because I really don't have a say in this. I'm definitely going to look at it with Raj, the abatement issue. And I'm sorry for my voice, I just have bad allergies because of the time of the year. But we'll definitely look at that. I don't think anyone should just be able to give an abatement out. I think it should be tied in. If it's affordable housing, 100%, it should be abated.
Okay. Chris?
Program.
Yes.
I'd like to get your thoughts on the future of that program and hear what your hopes are for the new opportunity zones, which I think ties in nicely to our conversation here today.
Absolutely. I think the opportunity zones are going to be great, not only throughout Hudson County. I think they're going to be very beneficial. The UEZ, I think definitely will be back. I think if we just give the governor a little bit of time just to iron out some of the wrinkles with the state budget, I think you'll see by the end of this year, we should be able to get the UEZs back. The UEZs definitely work. You saw it in Jersey City. I've seen it in Union City firsthand as the mayor. They definitely work, and they're an excellent program.
If I could comment on the issue of abatements, most of the abatements in the earlier years, starting roughly 30 years ago, were given downtown. I certainly think that it's long past the time when abatements were needed downtown. But in other areas of the city, I think, and it's an issue that we on the Construction and Planning Committee of this association wrestle with, in areas that are less developed, such as Journal Square, even though, this area is starting to take off now, but we still have that huge, big hole right next to the PATH station, and we're torn and it's caught up
Make it
in
a
the...
park.
Well, it's caught up in the conflict. Well, it's
a bad deal and been stuck with it for 30 years because people are upset because there's a hole there. Make it a park.
The people should get to benefit from it.
Yeah,
Well,
get the
it
benefit. If you don't develop it, you lose the abatement and you seed it and let people sit there on
Well,
benches.
that-
As opposed to being forced to take a bad deal that we lived with for 30 years.
Well, that's certainly one idea, but the property is privately owned, so I don't know what the legal
Maybe
ramifications.
try to obtain Green Acres funding.
Yeah.
Green Acres will give you 100% acquisition.
Really?
They'll come in and give you,
That-
they'll help you get acquisition of the property. We did something similar. If this-
You'll have more regular people who are living there now. once
Yeah,
they-
and this area is desperately
If
short.
the city was interested in doing that, myself and Raj could try to help Jersey City with Green Acres funding. Green Acres many times will offer 100% acquisition for the property, to take the property.
Yeah, but I'm not suggesting that as a permanent solution, okay?
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think we want, but as a temporary solution to appease people and clean up all that trash.
Right.
If the developer doesn't work on the property and tries to hold the city to the fire,
There you
force them by ordinance that they have to clean it up, grade it, put some grass in and put some benches and maintain
That would
it
be nice.
themselves until they build something.
But maybe that could be a permanent solution too. Kevin?
Sure. When it comes to Port Authority, up until right now, New Jersey Transit was a complete disaster. I'll tell you that as a state senator, a complete disaster. I deal with transportation issues all the time with Jersey City Heights residents, mostly Jersey Heights residents reaching out to me, and throughout the district, whether it be in Hoboken. Actually, the Port Authority has actually done a better job. I know the Port Authority doesn't get a lot of credit, but they've done a better job with the PATH system than Transit has done with the light rail. There is no doubt about it. No doubt about it. I see it firsthand. We just had Mr. Corbett, who just became NJT director. We just had him before the Budget Committee about 2 weeks ago, and I brought up these issues about the bus service too, in Jersey City. Because many times the buses come up and down our main roads, our main streets, and they're filled by the time they get halfway up, and it's standing only on that bus. They need to add more. And I tell them all the time, Transit will be the first one to complain about the small jitney buses everywhere. Those jitneys are out there because New Jersey Transit has failed in its mission of transportation. They need to stay out of the real estate industry, stop buying more property, and dedicate that money to buses and trains, dedicated to the rail and to our buses. So I think you're going to see changes there. I think Mr. Corbett will be much better as the executive director. Who is there? I can tell you something. I could call him as a local mayor. I could call him as a state senator. The guy wouldn't even call back. He wouldn't give out his cell phone number. It's unheard of. Thank God that person has moved on and there's somebody new there. I think you're going to start to see changes. I saw in the bus service on Palisade Avenue that there's been buses added already in the last 3.5 to 4 weeks. So I think you're going to see it better. It's not going to be overnight, but you're going to see an improvement in transit. And New Jersey needs to dedicate more money. We need to, and Governor Murphy's on the record with that. He's promising to dedicate more money for bus and rail service, which is critical. We're telling people to leave their car home. We have to put the money into our infrastructure of our buses and our trains.
Okay, Ruth?
You come here or come to another community organization, a block association, I'm willing to do that. Many of you probably say I do mobile offices and I move them around, I set up on a corner of a street corner. I don't do it for publicity, I do it because I know people have a hard time getting out to see a local official, myself being the senator, or coming out. But anytime my cell phone number's out there, don't hesitate to call me. That's 7 days a week. I'll usually get back to you within 1 day.
Okay, this lady.
Thank you. Hi, Senator. My name is Lorraine Martin, and just about every issue here is affecting me. I'm in Ward F. My taxes, my proposed taxes are up by 70%. Yeah. And you can't sell a house on Bergen Avenue nearly as quick as you can downtown. As far as mass transit, the buses stop running on my street by 11 o'clock. That's the AC bus company. We don't have New Jersey Transit buses. So if you work off hours, you've got to walk to Journal Square and get the PATH train from there. I'm picking up just as many crack files today as I did in the year 2000 when I moved there. We've had cars that have been destroyed by drivers that have actually come down Bergen Avenue and flipped their car because they're traveling at such a high rate of speed. I've had 4 different cars hit, parked legal. We've got big problems up in Ward F. Our problems are not at all like downtown or up in the Heights. We've got high crime. We've got, no enforcement. It seems like no enforcement of any law whatsoever.
Have you spoken to the police department about it?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You don't
I
see any increase in police in your neighborhood from before, from years prior? or-
Not really.
Well, with this community policing initiative, if you're free on Wednesday evening, I strongly encourage you to.
I've emailed a couple times and I did get results with the drug dealers that were exactly on the corner of Bergen and Brinkerhoff for 15 years.
Right.
Directly across from a charter school, diagonally across from a private school. Kids shouldn't have to see that.
I shouldn't.
And there's laws prohibiting it. Yet it still happens.
Okay, may I?
Please help us.
Right, yeah, this is a state issue. I went to the council meeting on Wednesday night because they had a $47 million bonding issue. Okay, so I had downloaded the ordinance off the city's website. I started taking a look at it. These are people complain about their taxes. They don't realize a lot of it has to do with the way the city spends their money. Now, this is an administration in the last 4 years. The operating budget alone has gone up $100 million, while the schools have been starved, okay? And now we're getting a 6.2% increase on the school taxes. Let me tell you some of the items on this bonding issue, okay? And I know the bond law, I took all the classes and everything, but I think the rules need to be tightened up. Somebody's got to start taking a look at that bonding issue. I know the Division of Local Government Services is greatly understaffed. I brought things to their attention. They said they don't have the people to research this. I didn't realize that the user-friendly budget was no longer online, even though we found plenty of buildings that were not even listed on there in terms of tax abatements. But this is $47 million, right? We have desktop computers, printers, software, firewalls for $1.5 million. Now, this is a budget that went up $100 million. I said, that's a maintenance issue. We have trucks, and they didn't have the number. So I told them I could only go by what was written on this ordinance, which should be accurate. $175,000, an F-150 for $125,000. We have repointing of that building, the parking authority on Central Avenue, which is not even that big of a building, $650,000. And then another $650,000 for a fire escape. It was a free-for-all. So unless the state puts the kibosh on people like Fulop, who thinks he's smarter than everybody else, there will be no end in sight on tax increases. And then for second reading, this was a second reading, so of course they vote because they do what the mayor tells them to do, right? And there was not a dime for the Lowe's Theater, not 1 cent. Yvonne brought that up. Not a dime for the Lowe's Theater, and that's because of his political attack with the Lowe's because he wanted to take control of the building. Not a dime, right? But we can do 1.5 and 600 here and 500. It was like a joke, right? Then we have another on the agenda, another annex building, which I didn't realize, so I didn't have a chance to download it. So now we're getting into this lease and own. I was part of a group that fought the first one, we lost. We were totally right, it never finished on time. And then the taxpayers paid $83,000 or $82,000 a month for a building that was still under construction. So the taxpayers took all the risk if the developer didn't finish the building on time. You know, you can't win here. You just can't win here
Okay,
when
but
you have
how
this
does that
level.
relate to the state?
So no accountability. So my point is, you need to get someone to start looking at some of these, like the bond laws, and start tightening things up. Because years ago when it was written, computers were expensive, and maybe they did have a 7-year life. No notebook or no desktop has a 7-year life anymore, and you can buy them for $1,000. You know what I'm saying? But the laws haven't changed, but they're abusing them. And SUVs, because they can bond for SUVs. Maybe it's time to change all that and say you've got to put it through your operating budget so that generations don't end up still paying for the SUV that ended up in the junkyard, but we're still paying for it.
You know where also though, where Jersey City is being, among many cities in Hudson County, but being unfairly penalized is through county government also. County government, a lot of the services that are offered in county government is a duplication of services.
Right.
And when you look at bonding, that's the king of bonding. That's the king in Hudson
Oh,
County.
yeah, so we can't win here.
We just bonded for a lot of different things. The schools of technology, now they're bonding for a new courthouse that's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. A police academy, I'm not sure Hudson County needs a police academy. That will just be ripe with politics and everything else there. So we just need to look at all
I mean,
that. Because Jersey City, every time there's a bond, you guys are paying 40% of all that.
Yeah, may I respond,
Sure.
on the police academy issue? Councilman Baggiano, who's a retired police officer, a fierce critic of the mayor, and he, of course, I believe it was under the administration of the prior mayor, Jerry Healy, that the Jersey City Police Academy was closed, and Baggiano's argument, and to me it seems to make sense, is hey, we have to send our police to different academies around the state. I tend to think, and I'm certainly no expert on the subject, that a county academy where all the municipalities could send their candidates makes sense, but, you know, I'm not an expert
Sure.
on that issue.
Just the cost though could be $50 to $60 million.
Right, right.
And if we have to send them to Mawa now or Seagirt, it's worked well all these years. My only concern is, Bill, and I gotta be honest with you, so-and-so who can't get through the academy and the state academy now is funneled through the Hudson County Academy, like everything else being so political in the county. I'm just worried about protecting the integrity of the police departments in the county.
Yeah.
That's what my concern is there.
Right, okay, Karen?
We have a Hudson County college system. I've taught at the college level a lot of years. Usually, there are classrooms that are not used, unlike public school. You do not use your classrooms hour after hour after hour. I would think the police department could work out something with the existing infrastructure
That's a good point.
and buildings that are here, right in Jersey City.
That's a good point.
Teach people, bring in their own staff, and the same thing, explore with the.
Sure. Thank you very much, everyone. Anytime you'd like me to come, please don't hesitate. And my number's out there. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Have a wonderful weekend.